Welcome, faculty, colleagues, staff, and students, to the Yale School of Art's 150th commencement. First, Yale University acknowledges that Indigenous people and nations, including Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Shattuck, Golden Hill Paugussett, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac and other Algonquin-speaking peoples, have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now the state of Connecticut. We honor and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these peoples and nations and this land. My name is Sophie Ness. I'm senior critic in painting and printmaking, and I'm happy to be here to salute our Masters of Fine Arts candidates in person as the 2021 Faculty Marshal. In light of ongoing crises in the world right now, I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude for the good fortune that allows us to be here together today, and to thank the entire school for the extraordinary work and the care that this year has required of all of us. I want to thank our graduating students for their support of one another, for their thoughtfulness, their resilience, and their willingness to show up in these times. I believe it was Dave Mustaine who said, "Thanks for coming out and getting nutty with us." I look forward to continuing to build a better world with you all beyond Yale. So to get our program started, please welcome the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Dean and Professor Marta Kuzma to the lectern.
Okay. Wow, if I knew it was going to be like this, we could have danced into this space. Good afternoon and welcome, MFA graduates. Welcome to the families and friends attending. Welcome to our esteemed faculty, to our committed staff and administration. Congratulations on the commencement of the Yale School of Art class of 2021. Without a doubt, you have been challenged and gripped by a historical pandemic, and yet you've endured to arrive here today as this community, very much in body and in mind, in what is our first in-person gathering in over 400 days. We commence as a School of Art here for the first time in our history at Old Campus. Its architecture evolved over the course of 2 centuries to retain the original character from Yale University's founding. The residential colleges that surround us were completed in 1933, the year in which FDR was sworn in as president, the year the Great Depression gripped the United States, and when all financial transactions were declared frozen, the year the World's Fair opened in Chicago, and the first drive-in theater opened in Camden, New Jersey. On this day in that very year, the composer and pianist Dmitri Shostakovich premiered in Moscow at a time when Langston Hughes lived there, only to be denounced by Stalin 2 years later due to the experimental nature of his work. And of course, 1933 was the year that the National Socialists won the majority in the German federal vote, when Adolf Hitler ascended to power within a regime that forced the Bauhaus to close. It was also the year Black Mountain College was founded in the United States. It remains important for us to continue to remind, to revisit, and to revise the then, and to place that in contrast to the now of today. But we do not need to reach as far as 1933 to feel the weight of history. We have endured our own epoch within the past 427 days of lockdown, demarcating a condensed cessation of life as we knew it then, and a now that has yet to be determined. Before we proceed with today's formal ceremony, cloaked in the symbolic clerical gear sourced from the 12th and 13th century, allow me to ask that we share a minute of silence in reflection of the monumental loss we have encountered throughout the past year, for the grief felt, for the crises of individual and collective character in the face of an epidemic, aggression, onslaught, police violence, injustice, the winds of vitriol and hate, metaphorical asphyxiation. Let us take this moment to hold ourselves alive, in contrast to those who have exclaimed in vain, "I cannot breathe." Let us reflect in this minute of silence. As we emerge out of a type of purgatory of isolation and drift into what we understand to be some form of closure, it may be that the past months will slather their residue and adhere. It is important for us to retain collective memory. We have changed, and we don't need Freud, nor Jung, nor Klein, nor Lacan to lead us to interpret that as artists, you sense, you feel, and you hold not only your own suffering, but the suffering of others, as if your body's ability to act corresponds to its sensitivity to other bodies, in a sixth sense way that resonates as the affective turn in the art that you produce. You bear the weight throughout the lives you lead to nurture and enlighten lives for others. You identify with care workers, with illuminating divisions and hierarchies, with bringing to the fore the oppressed, and in making the world aware of individuals fenced in, individuals kept out within genocide and turmoil. To note humanitarian transgressions in this country and throughout the world. You widen the spectrum in our comprehension of the now, of today, in this moment. The destruction and disfiguration of personhood, Goya couldn't come to us a minute too early to remind those who care enough to look at what constitutes the 24/7 of any artist. In a work so appropriately called "The Sleep of Reason Produces Monsters," Goya presents an artist as a body slumped over a desk while attacked by bats and lynx and cats and owls and shadows and spirits of things undecipherable, real or unreal. The artist is cast in the role of the observer of his own irrational experience, as a medium through which the nightmare of reality traverses, and also as an entity who holds visionary capacity, somebody who gives forms to constellations that offer new forms of life, new interpretations, and foundations for renewal. The artist, by making apparent the very human vices and errors, if merely by eliciting in oneself and in others the power of reflection and self-reflexivity that results in possible empathy. Among today's speakers, the writer and musician Greg Tate poses the very tough question in one of his essays. How can art represent the unrepresentable, speak on the unspeakable, visualize the unvisualizable? Tate answers his own question. The modern artist who takes on the problematic has to represent not only victimhood, but the organized and systemic state power which compels these crimes against humanity. The artist must approximate the means by which the state can disappear a people's humanity through forms of both high and low, legislation, media, cartoons, journalism, slang, graffiti, rumor, spin. All this has to be done economically, efficiently, subliminally, and swift-boatingly, succinctly, says Tate. What we meet today, in addition to this beautiful day, is perhaps day one of an attempt to renegotiate our terms with the world, to begin to no longer treat every human being as a vector of disease, or for that matter, of malice. This day, today, is one in which you commence in tandem with a larger reemergence that unfolds to reconstruct how we speak, regard, trust, if only to evolve this old campus of the world into one of wisdom, reconciliation, and one that may hold the capacity for expanding the realm for desire and for making of that which is unbridled and yet unbeknownst to us. I congratulate all of you with finding the way to sustain your research and your practice and your making and your agency throughout these past 2 years. I congratulate you on locating your communities to help you through the isolation and the correspondence that ensued as a result. And I truly and humbly stand here with head heavy without crown to commend your courage. And I praise our faculty and our staff and our administration for holding things together when the world, as we knew it and know it, seemed and seems to be dissolving. With this, I ask our commencement speaker, Greg Tate, to lead us in reflection, followed by our honorary graduate speaker, Amina Ross. Thank you.
Greetings and salutations, Yale School of Art graduates, class of 2021. Honor and a pleasure to be before you. Thanks to Dean Kuzma for the invitation to return to this institution, which I have a long history with in terms of students who graduated, friends who graduated, artists whose names you may know, who become New York friends, Wangechi Mutu, Nicolene Thomas, Kehinde Wiley, Chandra Singh, Tavar Strahan, Titus Kaffar. Now dig this. The acclaimed revolutionary theorist Frantz Fanon believed that each generation out of relative obscurity must fulfill or betray its mission. For Fanon's generation of artists and activists, that mission was to participate in the bloody battles for national liberation that were being waged in Vietnam, Angola, Algeria, and other former colonies of Britain, France, and Portugal, as well as engage in the internal struggles against the apartheid regimes of South Africa and the USA, and those military dictatorships supported by the US and the CIA in South America. The litany of revolutionary artists who made themselves present and accounted for the mission in Fanon's era is long and deep. Afrocentric socialist jazz artists Max Roach and Randy Weston released albums in the early 1960s, which were confiscated at the South African docks by censors simply because they had the word freedom in their titles. The apartheid regime, in fact, instituted a rule that henceforth no albums from America with the word freedom emblazoned on their covers should ever be allowed in the country again. The disruptive power of creatives and activists to radically transform political narratives with terse, provocative gestures is well present in our own time through such mythically empowering memes as Oscar So White, Me Too, Black Lives Matter, critical race theory. Black Twitter has, of course, also become its own mythological superforce in the world of modern race, class, and gender debate, and brought progressive accountability to government, business, and corporate media outlets in the process. The late great composer, band leader, scientist, philosopher, wizard, Sun Ra, who called his ensembles cosmic myth science orchestras, advocated that Black Americans should adopt a mythocracy as our ideal form of government, since we can see how well democracy has worked out for us. Sun Ra goes on to address how much the USA was once held together as a society by invoking a series of sacrosanct myths and symbols: the Constitution, the White House, the flag, the national anthem, the First and Second Amendments. We say once because blind American patriotism is not the mythic force it once used to be. We in fact argue that this is one consequence of former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick's challenge to that symbolic array by kneeling in protest at nationally televised football games. In protest, of course, the police killings of unarmed Black civilians. Kaepernick effectively neutralized the potency of those nationalistic symbols as markers of white American exceptionalism. The failure of Kaepernick's opposition to annihilate him as a public figure, the contract lost to the NFL was picked up by Nike, was a failure to stigmatize him as a desecrator of that holy trinity, i.e. the military, the Star-Spangled Banner, and the Super Bowl. It has subsequently led to the disenchantment of that trinity as banners held high by right-wing nationalists and white supremacists. Because nature abhors a vacuum, Donald Trump, the high lord and master of white Twitter, arose to fill the symbolic breach with his crimson MAGA hats, which, as seen on January 6th during the attempted Capitol coup, have taken the place of the flag, the anthem, the Constitution, the military, the Congress, and even democratic elections as the going definition of American patriotism to at least half the current electorate. Back in the 1980s, the sculptor, lyricist, and theoretician of subway art, Ramel Z, argued that the wars of the future would be wars waged between symbols, symbols versus symbols, myths versus myths. How do we know George Washington? Asked Ram. We know him through his name, so you don't have to kill homeboy. You just take out his name by firing your counter symbol at it. In this thinking, Sun Ra and Ram LZ align as it relates to both amping up the futuristic superpower of mythocracy over anti-democracy. Yet, figures such as Ra, Ram, Alice Coltrane, Miles Davis, Octavia Butler, Nina Simone, Samuel Delany, and George Clinton not only theorized critical Black futurities and mythocracies, they embodied them publicly, privately, and creatively. Samuel Delany has famously said that science fiction, speculative fiction, isn't really about the future, but instead presents willful distortions of the present. Visions which allow us to not only imagine a changed world politically and economically, but one saturated with radically transformative notions of collective human capacity. As someone who's witnessed the progress of human liberation struggles from the 1950s to now, I recognize this generation of creatives now has the daunting mission of sustaining the pursuit of a more just world from the present to the end of this century. Per Fanon, it has now become your mission out of the relative obscurity of your names, faces, creative projects, and practices to perpetuate not just the survival of the planet, but to answer the call for mythopoeic and mythogenic collectivism, to evolve your own sustainable and contemporaneous models of collective development on a par with your creative ancestors. The role creators played in mythically, gesturally, and symbolically inspiring the pursuit of liberty and justice across the span of the 20th century took many forms. Most impactful to my generation were those incubated within the tradition of instrumental and vocal performance, named by the Art Ensemble of Chicago as Great Black Music, Ancient into the Future, a tradition which remains significant in blowing back repressive state-sanctioned notions as to whose idiosyncratic voices and concepts matter most in the abstract democratic whirlwind. Folk like Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, Little Richard, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Mahalia Jackson, John Coltrane, Celia Cruz, Jimi Hendrix, Chaka Khan, Grace Jones, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, LaBelle, George Clinton, etc., all used the portal of great Black music to explode the barriers to BIPOC expressionists and conceptualists defining humanity and their own colored identities to the world. The belief in a radical mythocracy Sun Ra spoke of was already in place in every household where the empowering sonics and imagery of great Black music was enshrined in the community. Immersion in the musical culture as critical listeners, dancers, poets, painters, etc., represented the community's capacity to foment radically alternative universes of abstraction and political action within our marginalized urban hoods. Within the competitive structure of the international art world you guys are graduating into, you're already being encouraged to pursue individual glory at the expense of creating collectives of progress, justice, liberation. Yet the centuries deep history of the Black arts movement and great Black music, great Black literature and drama and visual work, before Chelsea opened its citadels and cathedrals to artists of color about 5 minutes ago, is a history of strong individuals coming together to form legendary collectives for speaking their aggregated truths to power. Sun Ra and his myth science orchestras represent one such hybrid visual and musical model of sustainable development, as does George Clinton's Parliament Funkadelic, their progeny in Public Enemy, A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Wu-Tang Clan, The Fugees, The Roots, Soul Aquarians, the elder Romare Bearden's painterly cohort, The Spiral Group, the Black muralist group out of Chicago, Afro Cobra, the still extant Black photographers collective Comonje, which gave rise to the just now getting her flowers Ming Smith, the Black feminist dance tribe Urban Bushwomen, the ATL's own Outcast and their Dungeon Family, Master P's Land of 1,000 family-owned brands, my own beloved Black Rock Coalition, our more millennially adept offshoot Afro-punk. These all represent contemporary and readily researchable iterations of this organized, mythophrenically driven communalism of Blackness and BIPOCness for the global communal good, as does the magnificent work Beyonce and Solange have been doing in concert and through their visual albums in rebooting Pan-Africanism as spiritual practice along Black women's critical race theory lines. As Yale graduates in this status-obsessed society, you already have superpowers of access and audience to the nation's most elite platforms, powers and abilities far above those of most mortals, which you may not even recognize yet. But trust that elite access will follow you throughout your lives. How well you weaponize it is the question at hand, methinks. My proposal and challenge to this class, as you all prepare to bounce up out of this jail of New Haven here, is to manifest ways that your collective creative voices can become more powerfully entangled in your generation's pursuit of a more just, equitable, earth-first, democratically enraged and engaged, motivated and enlightened 21st century and beyond. Now dig that.
Thank you, Dean Kuzma and Greg Tate. Faculty, staff, and peers, families, and loved ones who are here both in spirit and via the internet, thank you for your support. My name is Emma Sapphire, MFA candidate in painting and printmaking. I'm honored to represent the class of 2021 as student commencement marshal. Our cohort is asked to choose a peer speaker to address us today, and it came as no surprise that Amina Ross, MFA candidate in sculpture, won the most nominations. It has been a pleasure to participate in this program alongside Amina and to learn with and from them. It is also my honor to introduce Amina, who I welcome to the lectern.
Okay. Hello. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Greg, for also those really powerful words. Feels really energizing coming after you all. Thank you for this time and space to speak today. And first and foremost, congratulations to everyone within the class of 2021. Congratulations not only to you, but to your families, your friends, and to everyone that has loved you through this. I come from a lineage that understands that when I walk into a room, all of the lives that came before me enter too. So as I walk to this podium, trailing behind me are my ancestors and their ancestors as invisible guides, conspiring and acting in and through me. Some might call them ghosts or spirits. Recent emerging science of epigenetics imagines that in our bodies we quite literally carry the memories, experiences, dreams, and fears of our ancestors as codes within our DNA. In this way, in our singular presence is a plurality of presences challenging the notion of what it is to be a single or solitary being at all. Although our friends, family, and loved ones are not able to be physically present with us in this space, I would like to offer up the visualization to whomever would like to imagine that all of those you love and who have actively loved you are indeed here with you in this moment. So, if you will, to those who are open to it, take a moment in your imagination, with eyes open or eyes closed, to call to mind one person specifically who has loved you through your time here. Perhaps you can begin to register their facial features, their silhouette, their smell, or feel the warmth of their body heat, or hear the sound of their heart beating. Perhaps others join them. in the physical space of this vast, vast screen. I want to add to this visualization the creeping suspicion that all of your beloveds of blood and by choice are celebrating you. They're celebrating you not only for successfully completing a master's in fine arts from the Yale School of Art during a global pandemic and in the face of increasing global oppression and global uprising, but they are celebrating you for being alive and for committing to create things in a world in a time where so much is being undone. None of us take lightly the tremendous, ridiculous, complicated, incredible thing that it is to pursue and complete a master's in fine arts alongside everyday and local struggles for survival and liberation. It is a thing of tremendous audacity to believe that making has a place as we begin to level all of the systems that are currently failing us, and to speculate that the pursuit of the seemingly impossible can catalyze our work to disrupt. Where did this go? Give me one moment, you all. To disrupt my speech so that I have to refine my place. Thank you. Okay. It is a thing of tremendous audacity to believe that making has a place as we begin to level all of the systems that are currently failing us, and to speculate that the pursuit of the seemingly impossible can catalyze our work to disrupt, dismantle, reimagine, and eventually reconfigure this world. Commencement speeches typically call on the future generation of XYZ to abstractly go out there and go get them, to be braver than those that came before us. When I'm speaking here, I'm speaking specifically about the historic cycles of violence that continue to reinforce themselves and the accompanying legacies of resistance that are coming to a head all over the world and our role in them. I am talking about our kin in Palestine and their tremendous resistance in the face of a 78-year-long Nakba, a campaign of ethnic cleansing of Palestinians led by the settler colonial state of Israel. I am talking about the recent violence against our kin in Atlanta, working-class Asian women who were victims of the most recent resurgence of xenophobic violence within the United States. I am talking about our public schools here in New Haven, which live with a funding deficit, while Yale remains untaxed with a multi-billion-dollar endowment. When I'm talking about creativity, I'm calling for it. And when I call for creativity, this is not a call for a pale ghost of an absent-hearted creation in an abstract sense. Far too many structures of oppression have advanced under the guise of innovation. I'm calling for creation that paves ways for vitality, for the creation of life-affirming practices in a time where colonial powers are attacking Black, brown, Asian, indigenous, and poor life on a global and local level at unimaginable scales in too many places and using too many tactics to name them all here today. It takes a tremendous amount of bravery and, frankly, a large amount of damn near foolish nerve to believe that there is a way of building a life in this world, that there is a way of building a new world. Dare I say, this damn near foolish audacity and nerve is parallel to that which it takes to complete an MFA program in the middle of a global pandemic. But look at us. And speaking for myself and potentially for others here as well, I know that I did not do this alone. I couldn't have. Completing this degree came in the face of internal institutional pressures and internal institutional violences that made it deeply difficult to be here. For me and so many others of marginalized embodiment. The reality-defying survival skills of my ancestors who have survived and created a way for themselves in this world, in the face of countless attempts at their extermination, are what allow me to stand in front of you today. The inherited navigation skills of those who came before me are what have allowed me to complete an MFA program at Yale, an institution whose ghosts, whose founders of this old campus would most likely not be very happy to see me standing at this podium, yet here I am, and yet here we are. And to the ghosts of that old world, I hope that the collective presence of the Yale School of Art class of 2021 sounds alarms that this world is changing. As we prepare to cross the threshold of graduation, we can choose to cross this threshold together and accompanied by the multiple generations of moments of uprisings that came before us. Being here opens doors to galleries, museums, opportunities, and for those who are lucky, money. I want to offer a collective wish to those that would like it. I hope for us meaningful prosperity. I hope our needs and desires go fulfilled. I hope that many doors open unto us, and that as these doors open, I hope too that our capacity to dream and imagine opens up as well, so that we may begin to blow open even greater thresholds for others. As we begin to walk through the many doors open to us, may we cultivate the clarity of mind and of spirit to discern which structures can no longer stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina, Ross, and Greg Tate for your powerful and thoughtful words. Now we will begin with your diploma ceremony, and I will ask each Director of Graduate Studies to confer the Master of Fine Arts degrees within their area of study. I would like to first introduce Professor Sheila de Bretteville, the Caroline M. Street Professor and Director of Graduate Studies in Graphic Design, who will come to the lectern to confer the Masters of Fine Arts degrees in Graphic Design. Welcome, Sheila.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to hand out these degrees to our graphic design graduates. First is Herdaras Angara. Milo Bonacci. Louisa Dale. Bianca Ivalucea. Furkan Jawed. Haring Jung. Jung Jung. Minhwan Kim. Nicholas Massarelli. Aneshka Minarakawa. Kova. Menyi Kwan. Anna Sagstrom. Yenwei Wang. Congratulations, all of you.
Thank you, Sheila. And congratulations to the Masters of Fine Arts degrees in Graphic Design. I now invite Associate Professor and Co-Director of Graduate Studies, Maleko Mogosi, to the lectern to confer the Masters of Fine Art degrees in Painting and Printmaking.
Should I just go? And congratulations again. Vamba ability. Bree Brooks. David Craig. Danielle De Jesus. Nathaniel Donay. Layla Faye. Kate Meisner. Mitch Miller. Gabriel Mills. And Dala Nasser, who sadly couldn't be here to join us today. Tarman Perez. Alina Perez. Sarah Rockmanian. Jonathan Rajeski. Emma Sapphire. Chibuke Uzoma. And Curtis Walteroth.
Thank you, Maleko, and congratulations to the Master of Fine Art degree recipients in painting and printmaking. Next, I invite Professor Gregory Crutzen, Director of Graduate Studies, to the lectern to confer the Master of Fine Arts degrees in photography.
Congratulations, Yale Photo 2021. And here they come. Starting with Mickey Alacio. Yes. Ronwei Chen. And a special shout out to Robert Frank Chen. Tara Douglas. Jackie Furtado. Richard Max Galvich. Nabil Harb. Congratulations. Dylan Housefor. Wanzhou Ani Ling. Love those sneakers. Alex Nelson. And Rosemary Warren. Congratulations all.
Thank you, Gregory, and congratulations to the Master of Fine Art degree recipients in photography. Finally, Professor Martin Kersels, Director of Graduate Studies, will confer the Master of Fine Art degrees in sculpture.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you. Good afternoon. I first want to thank my faculty and staff colleagues for working so hard this past year and a half. It allowed us to continue teaching, for the studios to stay open, and for our shops to work at capacity. And I really want to give my respect to the grads who worked through such difficult circumstances this past year and a half, and yet created such amazing, knock your socks off, dolphin leaping over a rainbow artwork. So congratulations. Armando Cortez Rivera. Cameron Claiborne. Kevin Hernandez Rosa. Sejun Kim. Dude. Diana Sofia Lozano. Hedy Rowe. Amina Ross. Audrey Ryan. Jean Ho So. Freddie Villalobos. Stella Zhang. Congratulations, graduates.
Thank you, Martin. And congratulations to the Master of Fine Art degree recipients in sculpture. Okay, so before we close the ceremony and depart this old campus in a celebration for your accomplishments in obtaining your MFA degree, we must acknowledge what has been in this challenging year to extend our heart-wrenching appreciation and sincere gratitude to our extended community that constitutes this very Yale School of Art. But firstly, I want to thank the families of this community and the families of these members or your community members which have not been able to be here today, and those who also had to endure with all of the challenges that you had to endure in the past year. So I'd like a very large round of applause to the families. Okay, bear with me, this is going to be kind of long. We thank our committed faculty engaged with teaching in the past year, to those who are joined with us today, and those who are joining us virtually, the professors, assistant professors, associate professors, senior critics, lecturers, visiting critics, scholars, and those of our colleagues within the university who reimagined pedagogy, acknowledge the social and political landscape within which we are teaching, and to those who rose to the occasion to compose a fulfilling academic year. There are too many educators who have made up this teaching force to note in the final remarks. although you will not remain nameless, but are denoted in the spectacular Commencement program, which has been created and produced by our MFA graduates in graphic design, Aneshka Minarikova and Bianca Ibarolucia, who have received degrees. Today, thank you. And make those shine, those commencement programs in the sun. I must commend our director and co-directors of graduate study, whom you have just heard from several minutes ago. And if you sing and can sing, we sing thank you to you. And I certainly sing thank you to you. In addition to our professor, Anoka Faroki, who despite being on sabbatical, showed up, forged an important presence both in her educational capacity and in her civic responsibility to political change. Also, thank you to our assistant director in graphic design and to our long-standing and devout director of undergraduate studies, Lisa Kareji. To the school's 3 assistant deans, A.L. Steiner, Sarah Stevens-Morling, and Taryn Wolf, we extend so many thanks. I am so particularly indebted as I feel that you've contributed to a 4-member leadership dean team that helped lead a collective out of a crisis and a school as a collective out of a crisis. To the individual who made it possible for you as artists to work in place, we must all thank Alex Adams, who held the nearly impossible job of making certain that the studios and school remained accessible. And he did so in concert with our instrumental janitorial crew, Jose Estrada and Alfredo Gaitan. We extend our thanks to them and are not only grateful for their immense risks they put forth and assumed each day in meeting our public health demands, but also for suffering from those. Thank you, Desmond Lewis, who joined the school in late August, I hope not suffered. To oversee the facilities and sculpture, and who was on site nearly every day working with the students. We are grateful to this year's presidential fellow, Mickaleen Thomas, who continued to build the community within her workshop. Thanks, and we continue with our thanks to our lead administrator, Regina Berinowitz, and her team, Denise Sacek, as well to David Blackman for fathoming endless ways to support our students. And immense thanks to Jill Westgard and Michael Knock, who worked tirelessly to help make those ways financially feasible. There is our dedicated staff of Anita Vashugi, who supported our faculty in the immediate transition to online teaching from day 1 of the lockdown. Lindsay Mancini, who organized this year's open studio programs and a no visitors policy. Emily Kappa, who led the process of improvements in technology integrations for course planning and evaluation. Edgar Serrano, Chris Mandelbaum, Brian Schmidt, Larissa Hall, Sarah Conquest, Christina Molina, Krista Dobson, in addition to my executive assistant, Beth Castle-Lavelle, who managed to balance a wider cohort on any given day and helped me to keep a networked communication. I also very much am grateful to the postgraduate researchers, Eddie Dye, Willis Kindry, and postgraduate Angela Chen. and the editor, Angie Kiefer, who has worked tirelessly on completing what will be a revision in the history of the School of Art since 1969. Today, we celebrate our co-presenters, senior critic Sophie Ness, our faculty marshal, Emma Safir, our student marshal, Herdemas Angara, the flag bearer for today's ceremony, and for our speakers, Greg Tate and MFA graduate in sculpture, Amina Ross. Today, we also recognize the retirement of Professor and former Dean Robert Storr, who sits with us. And lecturer Jonathan Weinberg. The school thanks you both for the contributions you have given to our students during your tenure, and trusts we will continue to hear from you and experience your presence. And finally, I thank all of you, the MFA graduates of 2021 and the MFA graduates of 2020, who persevered to carry your degrees despite the world essentially coming to a halt. We, in the end, sing thanks to you and celebrating your graduating into the world, and as Amina thoughtfully recognized in their speech, here you are. School of Art faculty, staff, and guests watching around the world, it is my distinct pleasure to present to you this Yale School of Art class of 2021, and we hope to recognize you in the weeks and the years ahead, even if in reverse and upside down, while wearing David Blackman's iconic sweatshirts. Thank you. Good afternoon, and go in peace.